Thank you, worship team. Thank you. Preparing our hearts and minds for the gospel this morning. Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace you have been saved through faith, that not of yourself, it is a gift of God. Ray, can you get the lights off? It is a gift of God. The New Testament never says that people are saved on account of their faith, but always says that they are saved through their faith, or by means of their faith. Faith is merely the means which the Holy Spirit uses to apply to the individual soul the benefits of Christ's death. And so we're going to look at an example of saved through faith, followed by an example of condemned through fear. Saved through faith, contrasted with condemned through fear. There's a story of a tightrope walker, it's like 1800s in Paris, world famous, and a businessman over in the United States kind of had this little promotion idea, business idea that he's going to bring this guy over, he's going to do a tightrope across the Niagara Falls. And this has been one of those things done in different times throughout history. This guy was like a first. And let's tightrope walk across the Niagara Falls there, sell tickets, it'll be a huge thing. So he gets over and they do the practice run. And, the promoter's a little nervous now because now he sees, like, the difference between doing it between two high buildings and doing Niagara Falls is this tightrope's getting awfully wet. The mist, and as you're starting to walk on it. And not only does this guy walk the tightrope, he puts a blindfold on, puts it on, takes a wheelbarrow, and as he's walking along the thing, he's got his little bound thing, walks across the whole thing effortlessly. It was just like, it was almost like there was no showmanship to it. He's like, don't worry, we do it next time, I'll add a little, I just want to show I got it. So do you believe me I can do this? And the guy, of course, I just saw it. Well, do you really believe I can do this? Yeah. I'm asking, do you believe I can do this? Yes. Then get in the wheelbarrow. And he walked across when he did it live with the promoter in the wheelbarrow. This millionaire did it with him in the wheelbarrow across Niagara Falls. When we talk about through faith, we mean this is the idea of living by something. We live by something. It's not just an idea in our head. It's this idea that then causes action. And the passage we're going to really kind of dig into this morning is here in Matthew 28 and verses 5 through 7. It says, the angel said to the women, do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who has been crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, just as he said. Come, see the place where he was lying. Go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he is now going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you. All right, just to understand this, the angels say to the women here, the reason why only the women came is that the men were too scared. They have fled Jerusalem. They are hiding in this upper room. And they are scared to go out. I mean, they just saw what they did to their rabbi, to their teacher, to their leader Jesus. They saw the horrific death that he faced. And they're scared. They're not going out. They're first thing Sunday morning. All right, Saturday they can't go anywhere. They're in Galilee now, so they can't walk all the way to Jerusalem. That would be work. You can't work on the Sabbath. And so first thing Sunday morning, the ladies are like, "We're going." All right, and the men are like, yeah, "Maybe later for me. I think there's got a couple things I want to take care of here." And all right, the women walk out. They go. They're going to go to see Jesus. They don't really know what to do. We clearly don't see that they have some sort of belief that Jesus isn't going to be there. They believe Jesus is going to be in that tomb. They're taking with them spices. and other little things to kind of treat the body. Everything happened so quickly on Friday. They weren't able to prepare his body for Jewish burial the way they would have wanted to, the way they would have wanted to honor and respect him. And so they hold off, and they're going to bring their myrrh and other things like that and take care of his body at the first chance they get. All right, and the angel appearing there before him says, "Don't be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who has been crucified." Again, it reveals they didn't know he was going to be raised from the dead. They should have known he was going to be raised from the dead. Anybody that heard Jesus' sermons should have known that Jesus was going to raise from the dead. But this is unbelievable. It's a little too much. And the angel's response here is the same way we see angels respond to people quite often in Scripture. Don't be afraid. It's the same thing they say to Zacharias. Don't be afraid. All right? Your wife, she's going to give birth to a baby just as you prayed for. Mary, don't be afraid. All right? I bring you good tidings. I bring you, you have found favor with God. He tells the shepherds, don't be afraid, shepherds. I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be for all people. So this idea of saying, don't be afraid, he just is kind of saying, relax, listen, have enough faith to just stay still, don't pass out, don't run away. Okay? Just have enough faith to listen to my next words. And there's no condemnation here in the angel's words and the angel's voice. I don't think he's saying, ugh, how do you guys not get this? He said it like 1,000 times. We were all watching from heaven. He said he's going to die. 3 days he's going to raise from the dead. He doesn't have any condemnation. Jesus here expects these women and his disciples, he expects them to not believe. We know this because he left an angel. Alright? He left an angel to say, angel, I need you to stay here, explain what's going on. They're not going to fully get it yet. So he has to order an angel, stay. Alright? They don't fully understand the gospel yet. The gospel is unbelievable. Okay? It is unbelievable. And Jesus does not require some kind of monstrous blind faith to be able to just take this all in. Some people struggle with the gospel in that, how does a person raise from the dead? How does a person really raise from the dead? Some people struggle with the gospel of how can a human be God? Some people struggle with the gospel of how could he love me enough to die for my sins? So everybody struggles with the gospel in some way, shape, or form. We all do. And the angel is quick here to say, you don't just have to believe me. This isn't just kind of some, believe what I say, not what I do. Come inside. Go look where he was lying. He's not lying, look where he was lying. Alright? Look at where his body was. There was a body here, wasn't there? And now there's just this flat piece, and it's a little hard to get the exact description, but what it seems like when we look at the Gospel of John, that they had wrapped him, kind of think of like a mummy, like wrapped him up in cloth, and it was just like this temporary fix. And when Jesus rose from the dead, he didn't like burst out like an alien, like and like pulls his way out of these things. He kind of just like translated, transformed, just magically just kind of passed through, and there was this kind of perfect outline. So like no one ripped the clothes off him. He didn't rip the clothes off himself. It's showing wasn't just happen to be like, I'm not dead, what are you guys doing now? And pulls himself out. The cloths were totally in place. There, come and see where he was lying. He's not afraid to say, here, look for some proofs. All right, look for some proofs, but will you believe in what you have seen? So he says, here's the crux right here. Go quickly, tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I've told you. I gave the message, and he's going back home. All right, I've told you what I was told to say. He's going to be ahead of you. And this is where we are going to see their faith or not. This is where we're going to see what is their reaction of saying, go tell his disciples that he has risen. Is this going to be a possible. What are you talking about? Someone obviously just took the body. Let's go ask the Pharisees what they did then. Or are they going to get out of there, kind of gird their loins, and start running back to where the disciples were to tell them that Jesus had risen from the dead? Do we see their faith? Do they believe and run, or do they sulk and walk? There's this professor, who's a professor at Notre Dame. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's not American. Stefan Belizkic. He was a philosophy professor at Notre Dame. And he would do this little experiment with his kids, but at a church he was going to. They were actually doing a confirmation. That's just something we do in some denominations that we don't do in ours. They had this confirmation class. He did the same thing he does in his philosophy class. He did in his church. And he has this jar of jelly beans. And he says, here's a little piece of paper. I'm going to write down two things. Number one, I'm going to write down how many jelly beans do you think are in that jelly bean, this jelly bean jar. And they would write down like 41 jelly beans. He says, the second thing I want you to write down, what is the greatest song of all time? And they're like, Higher by Creed. Okay. All right. And they write it down. So they had him write down those two things. And he says, okay, let's find out. All right. He says, in this jelly bean jar, there were 909 jelly beans. And they're like, oh, all right. Who got closest? And the one that had 847 raised their hand. And they're like, all right. There we go. All right. So he's the winner. Here's your jelly beans. Here's your jelly bean jar. And he says, okay, now let's figure out what's the greatest song of all time. And they're like, well, and they started sharing their different songs. They got, someone mentioned Becker. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Someone had some Christian songs. I'm like, okay, good. But they everyone listened. He says, okay, so which one's the best one? I'm like, what do you mean? How do you determine the best? It's like really opinionated. It's really, personal. And he's like, okay. Well, how do we determine? You were just guessing how to jelly bean. How do we determine that was right? Well, it was the closest to the actual truth. And I'm like, okay. So you guessed. You kind of just try to do some math. So you got the closest estimation. You put what you believed. And then when it came to the song, you viewed that as all personal. And yeah, just like everyone's favorites are different. Nobody had two of the same song in there. And he says, okay, so what is faith in Jesus Christ more like? Is it more like believing how many jelly beans are in the jar, or is it more like believing what the greatest song is? And just like his philosophy class at his university, most of the people in the confirmation class, both young and old, said, yeah, I think it's more like the song. It's not more like the song. It's more like the jelly beans. All right? No illustration's perfect. It's more like there is an actual answer. There is an actual truth. And our faith is, man, I can't understand all of it. I can't see all of it. I would love to see Jesus face to face right here, right now, and unequivocally just know. But I can see some sides of it. I can see some, and I can formulate the rest. And I have faith that what I can't see, that I believe is true. Now we're told there's over 300 verses that are concerned with the subject of Jesus' resurrection in the New Testament. All right, we are told that this event, all right, of the resurrection is a sign for unbelievers. We're told that the answer for the believer's doubt is through the resurrection, that it serves as a guarantee that Jesus' teachings are true, that it is the center of the gospel itself. We learn that the resurrection is the impetus for evangelism, the reason for total commitment for our lives. The resurrection even addresses the fear of death. If Jesus rose from the dead, so do we, is related to the second coming of Christ. If he has risen from the dead, surely he will return. Is a model of the Christian's resurrection from the dead. He is the first fruits and provides a foretaste of heaven for the believer. The resurrection is a true historical event. And whether or not you believe it does not affect its veracity. It doesn't affect whether or not it happens. It's not like if less people start believing, like we think of like in the movie Elf, when like, oh no, not enough people have Christmas spirit, our sleigh can't fly. Alright? This isn't if you don't have enough Easter spirit, then the resurrection is going to fade away. Alright? Jesus is like, he's starting to go invisible like at the end of Back to the Future, like, oh no, I'm not existing. Alright? The resurrection is not based on our collective belief of it. There is a real truth of the resurrection. And whether or not we believe in it or not affects our life through faith. We are saved through faith. It affects our eternity. When we think about what the opposite of faith is, the opposite of faith isn't doubt or reason. You know? People think like, oh, opposite of faith is doubt. The opposite of faith, maybe the atheistic person would say opposite of faith is reason. There's believing in something and there's knowing something. But faith that can't work through and overcome a little bit of doubt isn't a worthwhile faith. And faith constantly uses doubt and reason to search for truth. No, the opposite of faith is fear. This mom shared this little thing on Facebook. I thought it was funny. So this a little sign or something, Johnny. You don't put your kids' names on Facebook. We do that all the time. Little Johnny, right? Little Johnny was asked to go and grab tomato soup or something out of the pantry. All right, they had like this little walk-in area. It was all dark in there. It's like, can you give me a picture? It's scared. I'm scared. I can't. I don't want to go in. And they're like, don't be scared. There's nothing to be afraid of. All right, there's nothing to fear. You're just going to go into the pantry and you're going to get a tomato soup. I'm too scared. Listen, Jesus will be with you. Okay? Jesus will be with you. All right? But do you believe that? And so he goes up to the pantry and it's dark. All right? And he holds his hand. He's like, Jesus, can you hand me the tomato soup? He believed that Jesus was with him. Maybe in a way that his mom did not intend it. I love this poem from E. Stanley Jones. I am inwardly fashioned for faith, not for fear. Fear is not my native land. Faith is. I am so made that worry and anxiety are sand in the machinery of life. Faith is the oil. I live better by faith and confidence than by fear, doubt, and anxiety. In anxiety and worry, my being is grasping for breath. These are not my native air, but in faith and confidence I breathe freely. These are my native air. Fear reveals what we think is most powerful in our life. Faith reveals what we think is most powerful in our life. In World War II, when I went to the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, you could spend 5 days in there reading all the little things and listening to all the little audio things. It was a massive museum. But one of the little things I learned is right when Germany had invaded Poland, followed by invading, at the time, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, which is right nearby, rounded up their Jewish population and shot them, killed them, to show solidarity with the Nazis. Basically, we're on your side, don't worry about us. And certainly enough, Germany kind of turned their attention westward. And when America finally faced some victories and invaded Normandy and had now was on European mainland, Hungary immediately raised up their army and attacked Germany from the east as we started attacking them from the west. And you're just like, whoa, wait, it's Hungary, okay, Hungary's the good guys now? I said, no, in that particular time, I'm not talking about the Hungarian people, I'm talking about the government here. That Hungary, their fear was of the Germans at the start of the war, because they looked around and they said the biggest, baddest boys on the block are the Germans, and we want to be on their side. And when America showed up, the biggest, baddest boys on the block were now wearing red, white, blue, and they wanted to join that side. Their fear was being killed or conquered or destroyed, and either they didn't care, to the point of they were willing to kill innocent people to show their loyalties. This is what fear does. This is what fear does. Cicely asked me what I was most afraid of. And I said, probably a little too deep for an 8-year-old, losing you? Losing you, Venice Roman? That's my greatest fear. I don't fear death for myself. I fear it for them. But God is working with me on that. I hope I'm maturing in that area. But fear can manifest in lots of ways. Fear can manifest in losing control, the fear of losing control of your life, the fear of losing power or position. I think fear can be a fear of being held accountable for your actions or your sins. I think fear can manifest, and I think it's in this way that the religious leaders were filled with fear. The chief priests and the Pharisees were filled with fear. That maybe, just, it's like a 1% chance, maybe Jesus is who he says he is. Maybe Jesus really was a prophet of God. Maybe Jesus really was the Messiah, really was God. And if Jesus raises from the dead, and he is who he says he is, then everything the religious leaders stand for is wrong. Their position is worthless, is meaningless. If Jesus is the one-time sacrifice for all, you don't need a chief priest anymore. Right? If Jesus has been right, who is ever going to listen to the Pharisees' interpretation of Scripture again? Their positions would be obsolete. And they're going to have to stand before the man they crucified in the heavenly courts and on his holy throne. That is terrifying. That if Jesus is the Messiah, they have to stand before him. And so on the next day, this is talking about, you can see we jump back to Matthew 27. Jesus was crucified on a Friday. All right, he is dead Friday afternoon. They buried him late Friday afternoon. The next day, Saturday, Sabbath, the day after the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered together with Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember that when he was still alive, that deceiver said, 'After 3 days, I am to rise. I am to rise again. I am to rise again. Therefore, give orders for the grave to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples might come and steal it away and say to the people, "Oh, he's risen again." And the last deception will be worse than the first. The deception being his lying, his sinning, his pretending to be the Messiah. This deception of pretending to rise from the dead will be even worse. Verse 65, Pilate said to them, "You have guards, go. Make it as secure as you know how." And they went and made the grave secure, and along with the guard, they set a seal on the stone. Don't miss, this is Sabbath. Everything they're doing right now is breaking the Sabbath. Everything that they're doing, they are straight up going against everything. Pastor Al brought out the other day that everything about Jesus' trial broke the laws of the Sanhedrin and the Sadducees. Everything they did broke the law. All right? There was what you got to do for capital punishment. All right? Takes 3 days. Needs to be done in the daylight. Needs to be let everybody know. They have a chance to get there to defend. All of that was broken in Jesus' trial. Here, once again, the value of making sure that Jesus is the Messiah is worth breaking the Sabbath. It is worth making people move a stone is worth making someone work by guarding the tomb all Saturday. All right? It's unbelievable, the hypocrisy of calling this man Jesus a sinner and deceiver, and they go and do the same. Now after the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, Sunday, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, Mary's probably James's mother, the other Mary came to look at the grave. And behold, a severe earthquake had occurred. For an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled away the stone and sat upon it. And his appearance was like lightning, and his clothing as white as snow. And the guards shook for fear of him and became like dead men. I don't know, this angel, maybe he just doesn't know his own strength as he goes to roll the stone away. It caused an earthquake. He's like, I'm going to put my foot down a little hard here. Maybe he was doing like a Captain Planet Kwame as he's like moving the earth. Like, I don't want to touch the stone. I'll move the whole earth and slide the stone over. All right, but when the guards saw this angel coming down, they passed out. They became like dead men. It's just saying they went white and boom, they hit the ground. All right, they became like dead men. And now while they were on their way, this is jumping ahead a few verses now, we'll go back and look at the passage where the women go and the angel tells them what's going on. This is jumping a few verses later. Now while they were on their way, some of the guard came to the city and reported to the chief priests, all right, what had happened. All that had happened, and they had assembled with the elders and consulted together. All right, so these guards saw the angel roll away the stone. I don't know did they see Jesus rise from the dead? They just reported everything they saw. They told the chief priests. They gathered together with the elders. And this was their solution. They consulted together and they gave a large sum of money to the soldiers and said, you are to say, his disciples came by at night, stole him away while you were sleeping. And if this should come to the governor's ears, we will win him over and keep you out of trouble. And they took the money and did as they had been instructed. And this story was widely spread among the Jews and is to this day. Everything that they were worried about, I'm worried about those disciples lying and deceiving everyone. That's exactly what they do. They decide to lie and deceive everyone, but everyone knows it. This story is widely spread, that this got spread amongst the Jews, that he just stole, the disciples just stole it. But these very respected Pharisees said it. I think it's amazing that at this moment, the chief priests and the Pharisees, if we take kind of real time, as they're getting the news of what had happened, the women are walking up to the tomb, and at this moment, the chief priests and the Pharisees are more aware of the resurrection than the women. They have a better understanding of the resurrection at this point than the women. And what they do is they lie and blame others for what they're doing. This kind of seems like the early birth of politics. Claim that what the others are doing is really what you're doing secretly. They try to deceive the world by lying, but it's a poor lie. Because in the proof is, after all these years, these disciples are persecuted, beaten, tortured, killed. And not a one of them let the cat out of the bag that, oh, we're kidding. We stole the body. Or actually, I'm not that sure. I actually never really met him. These guys all died penniless, powerless, and filled with joy. And the disciples' life, and more importantly, their death, prove that they were not the one to perpetrate the deception. Because as you can always see, the truth will always come out. But I want to make sure you understand, as we get into kind of the application portion here, we are not asked to believe in the doctrine of the resurrection. We are asked to meet this person raised from the dead. We're not just asked to believe in some sort of abstract concept of, well, listen, do you believe Jesus rose from the dead? Yes. Yes, well, then you're saved. No. It isn't about believing in the doctrine of the resurrection. It's on whether or not you have met this person who was raised from the dead. Let's go back to our main story here. The angel said to the women, don't be afraid. I know you were looking for Jesus who's been crucified. He's not here. He is risen just as he said. Come see the place where he was laying. Go quickly, tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you. And what did they do? They left the tomb quickly with fear. They left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy, and ran to report it to his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them and greeted them. And they came and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. And Jesus said to him, don't be afraid. Go, take the word to my brethren who are too afraid to come and see me for themselves, to leave from Galilee, and there they will see me. I asked you before, did they believe and run, or did they sulk and walk? You know what? They had some fear. They had fear, but they didn't let this fear grip them. They had similar fears that, at least from its inception, similar fears from that the Pharisees and the high priests had. But when we see the result is where we see their faith. Despite this little bit of fear that had gone up, they were filled with joy and immediately sprinted to go tell what they had seen and heard. We see the difference of what a little bit of faith, enough faith, that got them to say, I'm going to go and tell the disciples that Jesus stopped them and revealed himself to them on the way. Just that little bit of faith that yep, I'm going to go tell the disciples was enough. And when we see the fear compounded upon itself in the Pharisees' lives, that they are willing to break the law, they're willing to lie, they're willing to deceive themselves and others. Right? Because it can't be true, despite the evidence, it can't be true that Jesus is who he says he is. So here's my question. Have you met Jesus? Have you met Jesus? And I don't necessarily mean physically. He has done that. That's not his common way of approaching things. We see instances of him appearing to Saul at the time on the road to Damascus. I hear stories from missionaries of Jesus appearing to people. He does it. He's allowed to. He can do what he wants. That's not his norm. He is asking us to believe the testimony of him, the truth that is found in his word. So if we open up his word and read it like he is talking to me, talking to us. Have you ever prayed to him as if you knew he heard your voice? Have you felt his call? There was a story of a missionary said a story of this Muslim man who came to Christ in Africa. And his friends were asking him, why did you become a Christian? And he answered it like this. Well, suppose you were going down the road and suddenly there was a fork in the road. And you didn't know which way to go. And there at the fork, at the road, there were two men. One was dead and one was alive. Which one would you ask for directions? He says, I believe that Jesus is alive. And his word is living and active and sharper than a two-edged sword. And the direction that is giving me in my life is telling me which way to go over the words of people who are long dead and gone. You can meet Jesus, but know this. Him being the living King and Savior of the world has implications. Implication of one, you have nothing to fear. You have nothing to fear anymore, all right, because the biggest, baddest boy in the block is reigning over the universe. But it also implies that your life, your plans, have just become inconsequential in comparison to his life and his plans.
Amen.
And so the question becomes, are you still meeting with Jesus? I hope this isn't some event in the past that you're like, yeah, I felt the call of God in my life. Yeah, I trusted Him as my Savior. I believed in Him. Like, it's so real, it just overcomes me. But it's kind of, I almost feel like I can look back on that and I see it in the distance and I don't feel it presently. In John 20:17, there's a couple verses in the Bible that just jump out to me that I just, and they just stick with you. In John 20:17, Jesus says, "Woman, stop clinging to me." This is the same event of Him seeing Jesus as they're going on this road back to Galilee, and we don't know which woman, Mary Magdalene, Mary, is holding on to them, and Jesus is like, "Stop clinging to me, woman!" And I think she's got it right. I think she has the right attitude towards Jesus. When Jesus is in the room, you better be clinging to Him. When Jesus is there, you better be holding on tight. And the question is, have you been ignoring Him lately? Have you been ignoring Him? I think we should be clinging to Him pretty tight. I think with all the things going on in life, I talk to you guys, there's some stressful stuff happening. All right? There's some crazy, bad, horrible things happening in life. You need to be clinging. You need to be clinging to Jesus. She had it right. She had it right. And this is the blessing that we'll look more at next week of His ascension, and He's promised to be with us each individually always. We talk about our faith being personal. And it does need to be that. We talked that we are saved through faith. This is a personal decision. But don't take the faith personal part as meaning that everything about Jesus is personal. Everything Jesus did was very public. He had a public ministry. He publicly died. He publicly rose. He publicly ascended. Everything He did was in full view of everybody. This isn't something that one person had a dream and then shared it with everybody else and said, "You better believe my dream," or I'll kill you. This is Jesus did all of this in full view. And that's what He's like, "Didn't I do all this in front of you? Didn't I say this in front of everybody?" The personal part becomes, are you going to be saved through faith or condemned through fear? Today, as we take the Lord's Supper, if I can get Pastor Al to come on up. Today, as we take the Lord's Supper, this is a blessed reminder, and worship team, you guys can head on up as well. This is a blessed reminder that God is not just in the sky. That He is not just in the sky. That He is in us. He is with us. And we symbolically eat His broken body, drink His shed blood. But we do not share in that death. We are alive as He is alive. And we will be more alive when we finally shed this decaying corpse of a body. So as we take communion today, I want you to think about, I am welcoming Jesus in my life. I want Him. I need Him. I need Him in me and with me everywhere I go. It is a proclamation of His return. It symbolically, yes, represents His death. But let's also remember that His death is nothing and meaningless without His resurrection. His resurrection is what made His death so miraculous. And as we take the bread and drink the cup, let's celebrate His life, that He is alive and that we are alive spiritually too because of Him. And it's this reminder that, God, I want You with me everywhere I go. I don't want You with me just on Sundays. I want You with me every day. And I want You every part of me. As this brings you sustenance, it that gets traveled through every cell in your body will all have a little piece of this. And that is this reminder of everywhere I go, in every thought, in every brain cell, in every breath, Jesus is with me and in me. We do communion different ways.